Are you familiar with Benjamin Franklin's quote where he says that those who are willing to trade liberty for security deserve neither and will end up with neither?
Yeah. I mean, it's just such a horrible time, and you can, the timeline when you start looking back at it, and everybody always says like, well, that it will be judged by history, and I'm willing to wait because I know what will be judged by history.
Now, you'd said that you weren't sure that any of the questions would ever be answered. Just to update you on the last couple of months on some groundbreaking things that have happened, there was an international scientific study done that proved that there was undetonated nanothermite found in the rubble of the World Trade Center, which is a military incendiary that melts steel.
Right.
And that scientific paper by members of WeAreChange has now been presented to numerous senators and congressmen. It was also handed to Vice President Biden, and when it was handed to him, he literally turned around and ran away.
Yeah.
Because he knows once he has that information, he either has to do something about it or refute it. But then, more importantly, the members of New York City have gotten a petition together for an independent, subpoena-powered investigation done within the city of New York.
Right.
And they're about 20,000 signatures away from getting it on the ballot for the next election, which I'm not sure what will happen from that. But it's an interesting premise that the people are actually out there doing work and trying to take the power back and get questions answered when our government's not doing the job itself.
Well, rightfully so. And maybe one of the things that they're, I don't know. Much like when Obama says, I don't want to release any more of the torture photos because it creates more tension where we're trying to ease tension. Maybe the answers to 9/11 are just going to piss everybody off that much.
Well, I mean,
and rightfully so if that's the case.
The fact is, now, torture is a big issue right now in the news, but during the Bush administration, were you aware that Attorney General Gonzalez, when asked about interrogation techniques, said that it would be acceptable to use pliers on a child's testicles in order to get his parents to speak about information?
That was from John Yoo, the Office of Legal Counsel.
I'd heard about the pliers. I didn't know who said it. I'd heard about the pliers, and I'm sure that given how misleading everything at that time was, I wouldn't be surprised if anybody said anything. Nothing, honestly, and that's how I feel about that administration and that time. Nothing surprises me.
Now, what's your take on the American public at large when we have high officials coming out making statements like torturing children's testicles with pliers is acceptable?
They don't want to know. Maybe they care, but they don't want to know. It's a lot easier to not know. When you say, if you'd ask me what's the most important thing that any person can do, my answer is to educate yourself. But it seems to me that a bulk of people graduate 12th grade and say, I never have to learn again. And I'm going to get all my information from whatever news channel I turn on, and I'm going to believe it. And, I'm going to do things like put duct tape and saran wrap on my windows and doors, even though no one told me that I will eventually run out of oxygen. I like that part. I'm like, do it, dude, because you're obviously one of the people that needs to go away.
That's the promotion of social Darwinism.
Isn't it? Kind of. Yeah, it's like if you don't think
if you're stupid enough to do something that will injure yourself, then you don't deserve to be here.
Well, then that's the nature of the beast, and you're supposed to educate yourself and be able to say, like when George Bush was standing on the rubble pile and said, "We're going to get who did this," and my 8-year-old at the time said, "But didn't the people who do that die?" Yeah.
So what would someone like you, who gets out and gets to see the population at large around the country, around the world, what advice would you give to people like us for positive ways to educate people? Positive things.
First and foremost, don't get frustrated when people don't listen to you. That's the big one, because I think that the kicking and screaming and throwing and we're right and you need to listen to us, it's almost as if people just turn the volume down further. They don't want to hear it. So, what I've learned in being in the band is you can't please everybody. Some people, and it's just the way it is. So when people have something in their mind, I have direct family members that believe I'm a terrorist because of my views. And I've made it clear to my direct family members that that's cool that they think that. However, if an actual terrorist were to ever get a hold of them, they'd wish it was me and not an actual terrorist, because they don't understand. Their concept of terrorist is just shadowy and vague. And you know, I said, you could be on a trip in Ireland and get attacked by a terrorist. And I don't see us invading there anytime soon.
Well, I don't get frustrated. I look at it like, I'm going to tell you your house is on fire. If you decide that you like it warm, that's your business.
And you know, it's like we said, if you're in a movie theater and it's on fire and you're yelling fire, you're not a pessimist.
You're a realist.
You're just telling, hey, you know, ship's sinking.
Calling it how you see it.
Calling it how you see it. And if people want to sit in their seats and go, oh, fuck you, you don't know what you're talking about, fair enough.
Or think that the fire is part of the show.
Sure, why not? Have a good time. Because for us, you know, not going to beat our heads against a wall, because that's just fruitless and redundant. And, you know, we're going to basically collate like-minded individuals and say, well, we might not accomplish our goals of change in the broad spectrum, but change within ourselves and each other and sharing ideas. That's really the change that I'm looking for.
See, I see that as one of the major problems that's putting a block on American politics. When I was talking about smashing the left-right paradigm, it's always pitting liberal against conservative. It's almost like pro wrestling. You know, they on camera they act like they hate each other, and then they all go out to eat afterwards.
Right.
But what we're trying to do in groups like WeAreChange is find our common points. You know, do you like living in a free society? Do you like being able to go to one job and be able to afford to live somewhere decent and feed your family? And we're trying to unite people on those basic issues where we agree, and not try and nitpick too much about the details where we disagree. Because those things are resolvable. But the major issues like food, security, you know, safety, liberty, those are things that most people can agree upon.
I agree, and the sad part about that is that because we're human beings by nature, we'll fuck that up. That's just how we are. And, you know, you can put everybody in Mattersville, as No Effect speaks about, and someone's going to go, oh, fuck the Joneses, they've got that swimming pool and they think they're all special. It's just human nature. So-and-so took my job, and, you know, oh, he's looking at my wife. It's just always shit like that. Human beings are just destructive and evil by nature.
And because of that, just to interject, to interrupt the interview, because of that, that's why I personally think we need to limit the power of government, because if you give too much power to any throne...
Listen, I totally agree with that. You know, I think when you stop and look at a country the size of America, the United States of America it's ungovernable by one area. You know, so you just go, it's not for everybody.
Well, that comes back to something that...
what happens here is not what's happening in LA. What happens in Texas is not what's happening in Seattle.
But our founding fathers recognized this. I mean, Jefferson said that you know, any government that's big enough to give you everything you need is also big enough to take away everything you have.
Absolutely. And we're seeing that effect right now.
Okay, so
you know, a lot of things have been lost, but you know, a lot of people don't notice because they never go anywhere. They never really leave their little quadrant of the world, and you know, especially Americans, it's like, hey, you know, until you go on a holiday or go, you know, go somewhere where your currency is like, wait a minute, my dollar's worth what? You never know that unless you actually leave, because why would you care?
So can we get your take on the police state in America and how you've seen that change since, say, since your band started?
Well, I think it's getting better. You know, I was a lot more concerned about it when it seemed as if every day you would wake up and one more of your rights was in front of Congress to say, like, well, we need more information from people because they might be spies. They might be working with terrorist networks.
What about right now? Congress has passed and is awaiting the Senate the Cyberbullying Act, which has language in there that directly states that if you hurt somebody's feelings on the internet, it can be a felony punishable by up to 2 years in jail.
Didn't hear about that one yet.
I didn't hear about that, but I knew that was kind of coming.
Yeah.